This is a day. Today is 23rd of May. Radius is happening right now.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve Chandler. I'm here to do a presentation, if you like, an interview with William. I'm talking about AI and how it's going to affect the property development industry. As a developer, a development consultant, and a former builder, I've had a bit of experience of innovation across the decades. So hopefully today I'll be able to dazzle people with my brilliance on where I think AI can benefit our industry and the dangers that I see in it as well. At the end of my presentation, the interview today, I would hope that people would be inspired to make a difference in our industry. We need innovation. We need people who are leaders, who are going to take the bull by the horns and run with something, even though everybody says, don't do it, it's too hard, it's too scary. Anything that's too hard is great. It's too hard for them. It doesn't mean it has to be too hard for you.
Our next guest brings 40 years of experience. Amazing. I don't know how people do this thing 40 years and still have passion on it. That's awesome, awesome. And building property, in building and property development, and spanning major infrastructures to high density and individual and industrial developments. Mr. Steve Chandler is a third-generation developer, founder of Lefter Corporations and Property Development Institute, and a trusted advisor to top-tier clients like CSR, Toyota, and Goodman. He's also a published author and a former lecturer at University of New South Wales and UTS. With deep roots in traditional development and a sharp eye on the future, Steve joins us to explore how AI transforming property development and what we should be paying attention to next. So I'm super excited about having the conversation with Steve, and so please join me in welcoming Mr. Steve Chandler.
Is this the cliff of death that Paul was talking about before? You know, over we go.
I guess keep you on the edge a bit. I've got some very interesting questions for you today, Steve. Steve, you've been in the industry for 40 years.
45.
45.
45.
My sincere apology.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm older than you think.
I was trying to shave 5 years off your age, so
no.
I tried.
I don't need it.
I tried my best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, in 45 years in property, how can you manage yourself to be such a happy lad after 45 years in the industry?
Oh, you haven't met my wife.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing.
Yeah. What do you see? What did you see in the last 45 years? Tell us.
I saw it when I started as a carpenter. So, started swinging the hammer. As a chippy at TAFE, learning the trade, they were talking about this innovative product that was going to change our world. It was going to be this awesome thing, and it was called silicon. And when silicon came in, everyone thought, this is going to be fantastic. In my view, what a load of shit. It's really created a problem for us in our industry because we rely on it. Instead of doing traditional things, I think building's actually taken a backward step in a lot of the things that have been, what innovation has done. There's definitely a place for innovation, and I'm a proponent of modular, so I can't wait to hear the talk a little bit later today on modular. But a lot of things have changed. We've got rid of a lot of things that I think we should have kept. So, changes in the building code, etc. There are some sort of revisionary things happening now, particularly around mould, moisture, ingress and things like that. But modern building is not what building was, if that makes sense. Looking at construction sites now compared to what they were when I was a kid, obviously a hell of a lot safer. People live longer in the industry now. The things that I did as an apprentice that my employer allowed me to do, it just mind-boggling. That it wasn't a problem for me to walk out on a steel beam literally with a 100-metre fall, like you see in New York on the Empire State Building. Things like that. We did that. Nowadays, it would never happen, you know, and that's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I've got lots of funny questions here. Very interesting.
God,
People don't ask those questions. What has property development taught you about people?
People are horrible. Right? No, seriously, you think about it. You know, like as a property developer, you know, when I worked for Lang Walker, Lang sort of, I had a meeting with him and I kept on looking at my watch and he said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Oh, look, you know, I've got a lunch, right?" So, and he goes, "Anyone important?" I said, "Oh, it's the consultant team. You know, I'm taking the consultants out to lunch." And he says, "You're not paying, are you?" And I've gone, "Well, yeah." And he says, "Why? You're the top of the food chain. Without you and our capital and us taking a risk, no one's got a job." So he sort of, you know, in a odd sort of way, he taught me that, you know, it is the developers that actually create the industry. And without the developer being willing to, you know, dip into his pocket, shell out cash to make things happen, to make projects happen, you know, none of us in the industry have a job. So that was a sort of a little bit of an insight that I got, you know, about 20 odd years ago. And it really made me appreciate that a property developer, you know, really has, you know, big kahunas, you know, like you've got to look at all the things that are happening. Paul said it all, you know, like there's uncertainty everywhere. And if you think about, you know, the site acquisition, you know, and David's due diligence list for site acquisition, all this sort of stuff, and the feasibility, when you look at all that, we've got to form a view on what's going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years before we deliver our project.
More.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so you go, okay, how do you do that? You know, you go to as many economic forums as you can to find out what different people are thinking. But ultimately, we have to form our own view. Well, I'm not an economist, all right, but I have to sort of look at it and go, what is going to happen over the next 3 to 4 years for me to put my capital in? And for me to wait that period of time to get my payday. You know, consultancy firms, builders, what they are service providers. They're all service providers. You come to me and you say, "Can I, you know, provide a service to you?" We agree a time frame, a scope of works, and an amount of money. You have certainty. You know, you've got a contract with me, you know you're going to get paid that amount of money for doing that amount of work over that period of time. I don't have that certainty because there's no guarantee I'm going to get paid at the end. So a developer really is super bloody important in our world. And the developers that make money are very careful. They don't take uncalculated risks. We're looking at efficiencies all the time. And here's the segue into AI. You know, we're looking for ways to make what we do more efficient and to reduce our risk. The less risk we have, the better it is for us. So anywhere that we can see something that can help us mitigate a risk, you know, and it's viable to do so, we'll take that.
And if I can ask you about AI, since you mentioned it, what if AI has entered the property game 20 years ago? Would have it impacted our lives and, you know, our projects? And what do you think AI can't change in the current process?
Well, if we look at what's happening with AI right now, you know, it's. Yeah, I'll give you an example. On Wednesday last week, so I'm just about to put tenders out for consultants on a project that I've got. And I got my lawyer to have a look at my, you know, standard consultant services agreement. And I said, "I want you to just update it for me," right? So he sends it back and it's got comments. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, "Where's the AI clause?" You know? And so I ring him and I go, "Mate, where is it? Where's this AI clause that, you know, we should have?" And he said, "What do you want it to say? And what's it going to do?" And, you know, it's a really, really good question because what is it supposed to do? What's the purpose of an AI clause? And you go, okay, AI is something that scours available information basically on the net and pulls back information and serves it up in front of you. So you go, okay, what if it's wrong? Because it's going on the net. You know, I did just to put it to the test, I did a employment contract. I got ChatGPT and did an employment contract last week and looked at it, and it, you know, I put all the scope in, and I said, okay, this is what I want. So I punched out this employment contract. Then I asked it, what clauses haven't you put in? And it gave me a list of clauses it hadn't put in. And I'm just going, well, isn't that stupid? Shouldn't it have included that? So a lot of what, you know, AI can do at the moment is scary. Because if you've got a consultancy firm that's actually doing a report of some description for you, and they deliver this report and they've used AI in the production of that report and some of it's wrong, what happens? What happens? You know, let's say it had a multi-million-dollar impact because they've used that AI-generated information in the report. Suddenly you've got this thing out there that you've relied on that's cost you millions of bucks, and you go, right, I'm going to sue the consultant. So you sue the consultant and they've used AI. What's their defence? They've used AI, right? My lawyer says you're suing them for their negligence. You go, okay, all right, I'm going to sue them for their negligence. Insurers, where do insurers stand with AI? Because they're insuring the company, theoretically, they're insuring them against using AI, but are they? And that's another question. Like the value of a consultancy firm, if you sue them, is not in their capital because they have no capital base, it's in their insurance policies. So for us, this is starting to be a massive risk, because if I sue a consultancy firm and their insurers say, well, that was generated through artificial intelligence, we don't cover that in our policy, I'm screwed. And these are the things that are worrying me about the advent of AI. So, you know, I look at this employment contract, I've created it, and I've put in this employment contract an AI clause. And I've said that any of my staff members, you know, who will be engaged with this, are not allowed to use AI unless they get permission from management, and then management must check everything that's produced by AI.
Like a disclaimer, a small disclaimer within the organisation, you see.
Yeah, it's like my lawyer said, look, you know, I've got a particular very large client, they've got an in-house legal team. He said, I used to do all of their contracts for them. He said, they're already using AI to generate legal contracts. He's gone from a sort of a $10,000 fee to create this contract to $2,000 because all he's doing is checking the AI generated document to make sure it complies.
Wow.
So it's interesting.
Thanks for sharing the risk on the upper side.
I'm here to help, right?
On the upper side, what do you think AI can help us in property development processes?
You look at it, you know, in my world, one of the documents I created in Property Development Institute was a 38-step guide to property development. And, you know, I'm looking at every stage of this guide and I'm saying to myself, how can AI help as we move our way along? And look, it's going to help in generating documents. You know, humans in my lifetime, I see that humans will always have to check what AI is doing. I don't think we're anywhere near the ability for AI to do anything other than generally gather information. I think that it's going to help with things like generative design. You know, like Archistar were one of those platforms that, you know, started with this generative design, which is fantastic, but it's fairly basic. It's still fairly basic. But I see generative design being, you know, something that gets adopted far more, particularly for concept design. The other thing is and again, Archistar have pushed into this into the US particularly, is compliance checking. You know, uploading a model into their platform, and this is not an ad for Archistar, by the way, but, you know, and it will check it for compliance with the relevant building codes, planning codes, and things like that. I think that's going to help. I think I would love for that to be seriously adopted by government across the board.
Well, what about feasibilities for new developments in terms of dollar value feasibility, not just planning?
Look, nervous. I'd be nervous about that.
Why is that?
It's my money. Like if I'm going to shell out money, I want to be certain in myself. One of the things, again, there's feasibility platforms that are out there. You punch in the key numbers and it'll punch it out and say, oh, this is it, and here's your cash flow. That's fantastic, but in my world, if you don't have a feasibility study that you can put the numbers in and understand how the ultimate numbers are generated from that, you're not a developer. Right? So for me, you have to understand the feasibility, the cash flow inside out.
What about any kind of future proprietary software that can bring developers and the council's approvers together in the sense that they both trust that centralized system to make the approval process faster? Is that possible?
I absolutely. Look, one of the things, and hopefully the modular discussion talks about this, we need volume for modular to really work. I've been a proponent of it for 10 years and I've never used it. So, I really want to see it happen. But Australia's such a small place, you need volume of the same thing to make it actually viable. So, if we can get a automated compliance process, an automated design process that's accepted sort of across the board by all developers and the authorities, then modular can plug into that. And if we've got, then that will help generate the volume that modular needs. And if we can get that to happen, then the cost of everything is going to drop. Mm-hmm. And that's, like now you look at the unaffordability of homes. We're going down a pathway at the moment where it'll be corporate ownership of all residential property. It's just a matter of time because it's too expensive for people to own their own homes, So it's something where we've got to do something. It's got to be something drastic. And I do think that if we can pull modular into a standardised type of design process that's controlled by the authorities through their planning schemes, then I think there's a great opportunity to reduce our...
Do we know what's stopping that from happening?
I think a lot of people, government, nobody wants to lose control. If you think about government employees, not necessarily the highest paid people, but they've got massive power, and they have that power by controlling whether or not you get your development. So if someone wants a power hit, go work as a town planner. That's that in a council. That's where you can have some real power to control, multi-million-dollar projects from, stopping them from going ahead or allowing them to go through without too much trouble.
Yeah, understand. Look, time's very short today. We had a conversation about 20 minutes already. I would like to open, the question to the crowd, and we could take probably a couple of questions. Anything you want to ask about property, AI, construction, whatever? We need one break.
Nick, what was your question?
Well, I think the modular thing is interesting, Steve, and we're doing some work together. And I wonder whether a negative to AI, and obviously I'm speaking, as you know, as a designer, might be that we get less variety and less sort of vitality in the environment that we may be homes that we're built, and I'm investigating modular as fast as you are, as you know. But there is that consideration about what that does. And if I'm critical of AI, and we use it a lot in our business, I can tell a ChatGPT written document, and I can just tell it because it repeats a lot of the same language. It's very simple language, and when I'm seeing use of ChatGPT in reports, it's very evident still. And I wonder whether that sort of sterile approach might find its way into our built environment, and how we can ensure that as AI continues to develop, that our built environment will remain as vibrant as it is now?
So we'll go back to the thing you said, who's going to stop it? Well, Nick, all right? Nick's going to stop it, and Nick's an architect working for me. It's that, we're going to have these problems, and everyone's entitled to an opinion, and that's really important. The industry has to work this out. Nick is absolutely right. It's going to affect the look of our buildings. I mean, if you look at what China has done with their modular, they can punch those things out in absolutely no time, but it's the same building over and over again. If you change the facade, well, okay, you change the facade. But if you can have a better control over the facades, that's half the problem. But if we're going to go down modular in Australia because we don't have a large population, we've got to do something to standardise what we're doing to make modular cost effective.
Do we know what that is?
Yeah, get rid of the architects. No,
Just the structurals will help you.
Yeah, just work with structural engineers. They'll do a much better architectural job, right?
That's right.
No, look, we've got real challenges in our industries. Affordability is
one question from Dave.
Sorry? Oh, yeah. Sure.
I think I'll have to step in from the architectural point of things, and dodging of engineers, that will be fatal to have engineers doing architecture. Second, AI doing architecture, I believe still the role of the architect, Steve was mentioning, is to maintain, to curate, because you as a developer may get 300 iterations of very feasible options, all of them potentially good in terms of revenue, but they might look shit.
Yep.
Who's your consumer? It's not another AI, it's not a robot, it's a human.
People. Yeah, people. That's why people are horrible, right? People, everybody's different, right? And when I started this discussion, the statement was people are horrible. We as a developer, I've got to get the best out of people in every organisation that I deal with. They can be, happy, they can be sad, they can be getting married, they can be getting divorced, they can be sick, they can be getting over being sick. They're in all sorts of different states of mind. For my project to be successful, I've got to get the best out of everybody. AI removes that problem because AI just does. But AI at the moment is not like a human. You can't get AI at the moment to do what an architect does. And we need architects. I can describe things, and I'm more of an engineer than I am an architect, that's for sure. So when it comes to what I use, the words I use, I couldn't brief ChatGPT or AI to create something, but Nick could. So Nick and I have many conversations where I talk to him about stuff, right? And he's the one who's able to take the verbal diarrhea that I come out with and turn it into the actual design that we're going to use. And that's where AI can't, not in my lifetime, I don't believe, that we'll see AI actually step up into that role. So, we've got another 50 odd years before I think AI is going to be anywhere near able to take over that thought process. It's a long way off.
Well,
How long?
50.
I reckon 50 odd years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a like AI is just a due process thing. It'll do the reports, it'll punch it out, and again, like I'm doing something at the moment. Right now, I'm trying to put together a business where we're using AI to come up with the best way to manage a development process from start to finish. The gentleman I'm working with on that, we're talking about a 12-month process to just get the conceptual framework around it. There's not going to be a platform that can do everything. No. We're looking at what platforms are there to attach to my 38 steps that I talk about through a project. So we're miles away from getting something that can automate or be the co-pilot, if you like, in a property development project. But I'm giving it a go.
Thank you so much for sharing, and a round of applause for Steve, please.
Thank you.
That's right.